Hey there, and welcome back to my channel. I come bearing valuable information that will forever change Dungeons & Dragons games. But could something as simple as hemp and rope change the future? What if I told you that we may have been deceived? Hemp and rope is a 50-foot length of rope that all D&D player characters can choose to start with. It weighs 10 pounds and costs 1 gold piece. Hemp and rope has 2 hit points and can be broken with a DC 17 strength check. Its dynamic load-bearing capacity is 600 pounds, which should more than adequately hold the weight of most characters. Thanks to a very popular Reddit post by Tinfoil Haberdashery, we now know that hemp and rope with similar measurements has a test strength of 800 pounds and weighs 15 3/8 ounces. Wizards! You all know by now how I feel about Wizards' creative process.
Hey Mike, how much could this rope possibly weigh?
Let's talk about rope and whether or not Wizards is full of shit. Think of a dynamic load as if you were climbing a cliff and suddenly fell. That sudden force exerted on the rope is dynamic. A static load is more in line with hauling something that is unlikely to move randomly. Each climbing rope has a dynamic load-bearing capacity and a static load-bearing capacity, usually separated by a factor of between 5 and 15. The number changes depending on the type of rope and how safe you'd like to be. For these examples, we'll use a safety factor of 10. Hemp and rope as written has a dynamic load capacity of 600 pounds and therefore a static load capacity of 6,000 pounds. What about Tinfoil Haberdashery's rope? 800 pounds as a tested strength has to be reduced by a factor of 10 for a dynamic rating. See? Tested strength in the post is misleading because it refers to the rope's static load-bearing capacity. 800 pounds divided by 10 is 80 pounds dynamic load-bearing capacity.
Lies! Deception!
Despite the rope being clearly advantageous for its lower weight, 80 pounds is the maximum you'd want to suddenly stress it with if you're out adventuring. I don't know about your Dungeons & Dragons party, but the only one in my group who might weigh below 80 pounds is Zaylee the Gnome, and that's only if she isn't carrying the myriad of items that usually weigh her down. With all their gear, Torin and Nala weigh over 300 pounds, while Barakas weighs over 400 pounds. Using this 80-pound rope seems like a bad idea. But there is a way to calculate how much force one would need to generate in a brief fall before the rope goes taut. First, we'll need to convert imperial weight measurements to metric and then use a new measurement, kilonewtons. 1 kilonewton is equal to approximately 100 kilograms of weight exerting force measured in newtons. For this example, we'll use Torin and Nala's approximate weight of 350 pounds, converted to approximately 159 kilograms or 1.59 kilonewtons. The rules as written, hemp and rope has a 6,000 pound maximum load weight, converted to 2,722 kilograms or 27.22 kilonewtons. The safety factor of the rope is determined by dividing the kilonewtons of the maximum load weight by the weight of the objects suspended from it, which effectively has a safety rating of 17. Fantastic! But this rating only shows us safety for a static load. For a dynamic load, we need to divide the safety rating by the possibility of a dynamic event involving more kilonewtons than we expect. To calculate dynamic force, you need to multiply the mass of the object by its acceleration. The mass is 159 kilograms and the downward acceleration is 25 feet per second squared, or 7.62 meters per second squared. The force resulting from these measurements is an additional 1.21 kilonewtons. Our new safety rating with regard to dynamic load is 17 divided by the 1.21 additional kilonewtons of force, which is 14. The last order of business is to finally determine whether or not the weight of 10 pounds for a 50-foot length of hemp and rope is reasonable. If a rope that weighs 1 pound can support 800 pounds, a rope that supports 6,000 pounds should weigh at least 7.5 pounds. Given that increased weight stress on a rope requires extra reinforcement to prevent the rope from snapping, 10 pounds for a 50-foot hemp and rope is actually pretty reasonable. Alright, wizards. Looks like you finally managed to do something correctly. And I really hate to hand it to you because a safety rating of 14 is pretty phenomenal. Sure, it's more or less depending on your character's weight, but I guess the most important rule of adventuring might be safety first. Who am I kidding? Following safety rules in Dungeons & Dragons never led to amazing stories. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching this random video about hemp and rope. A special thank you to my patrons. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, share my video on your Twitter, Facebook, or other social media, and make the leap to become one of my patrons on Patreon. I'll see you all next time.